What is the creepiest or most unexplained thing that's happened to you that you still think about to this day? When I was 15, I lived in this typical British terraced house with my parents in a neighborhood where all the houses were basically identical and built right next to each other. Our house was in the middle of a row, and like most places in that area, there was this narrow alley that ran behind all the back gardens so people could access their rear gates and put out bins for collection. My bedroom was on the second floor at the back of the house, and the window looked out over our small back garden and into this alley. It wasn't a particularly private setup, but most people were respectful enough to just walk through quickly when they needed to get to their own gardens or whatever. Our next door neighbor was this guy named Mr. Henderson who lived alone and had always seemed a bit odd. He was probably in his late 40s or early 50s, kind of scruffy looking, and had this way of staring at people that made you uncomfortable. My parents had mentioned a few times that he gave them weird vibes, but we'd never had any real problems with him. This particular afternoon was a Saturday in early autumn, and I was getting ready to go out with some friends later. I just had a shower and was in my bedroom getting dressed and doing my hair. I was wearing a top and underwear but hadn't put my trousers on yet because I was planning to straighten my hair first and didn't want to get too warm. My hair was pretty long and thick, so straightening it was always this tedious process that took forever. I had my straightening iron plugged in near the window because that's where the outlet was, and I was standing there sectioning off pieces of hair and working through them methodically. I was maybe halfway through my hair when something made me glance up toward the window. Movement in my peripheral vision probably. What I saw made my stomach drop immediately. Mr. Henderson was standing in the alley directly behind our house, maybe 20 feet away from my window. He wasn't walking through or doing anything that would explain why he was there. He was just standing completely still with his arms crossed over his chest, staring directly into my bedroom window. The moment I saw him, I immediately dropped down below the windowsill. My heart started racing because I realized he'd probably been watching me for who knows how long while I was standing there in my underwear, completely unaware that anyone could see me. I stayed crouched down for a minute, hoping maybe he'd just been passing through and would be gone when I looked again. But when I carefully peeked up over the edge of the windowsill, he was still there in exactly the same position, arms crossed, staring at my window with this blank expression on his face. I grabbed my phone and managed to take a picture of him through the window. The photo clearly showed him standing there in the alley, facing my house, obviously focused on my bedroom window. I thought maybe having evidence would be important if I needed to tell my parents, or if this escalated into something more serious. For the next 15 minutes, I kept checking every few minutes to see if he was still there. Every single time I looked, Mr. Henderson was in the exact same spot, doing the exact same thing, just standing and staring. He never moved, never looked away, never did anything that would suggest he was there for any legitimate reason. It was the most uncomfortable and violated I'd ever felt in my own bedroom. This was supposed to be my private space, and here was this middle-aged man deliberately positioning himself where he could watch me getting dressed. The fact that he stayed there for so long made it clear this wasn't accidental or innocent. Eventually he did leave, but only after I'd been hiding below my windowsill for what felt like forever. When I finally saw that the alley was empty, I immediately closed my curtains and finished getting ready in the bathroom instead. I showed the picture to my parents when they got home, and my dad was absolutely furious. He went over to talk to Mr. Henderson about it, but Henderson claimed he'd just been checking something in the alley and hadn't been looking at our house at all. Obviously, that was complete nonsense given how long he'd been standing there. After that incident, I always kept my bedroom curtains closed when I was changing clothes, and my parents installed a privacy film on the lower part of my window. Mr. Henderson moved away about 6 months later, but I never felt completely comfortable in that room again. The whole thing still creeps me out when I think about it. The deliberate way he positioned himself and how long he stood there watching.